Russian President Vladimir Putin arrives in New Delhi for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit on December 4th. Now, on the surface of this, it looks like a summit of old friends, but behind the pomp lies a relationship driven by hard security needs, energy, as well as a delicate balancing act with none other than Washington. That's right. First up, let's understand why Moscow remains strategically important to New Delhi. Now, there are Sukhoi 30s, S-400 missiles as well as oil tankers. We'll tell you all about that. From fighter squadrons to fuel tankers, the India-Russia relationship runs deep. In New Delhi this week, the focus will be on unfinished defense deliveries, growing energy trade, and a shared comfort with strategic autonomy, even as India courts the United States. Here's how the pillars stack up. India's armed forces still wear a large Russian imprint. Decades of agreements, licensed production and joint projects have left the Indian Air Force, the Indian Army and the Indian Navy dependent, to say the least, on Russian platforms that are often cheaper to operate and easier to maintain, and for which India has built domestic sustainment capabilities. Now, for the Indian Air Force, fighter jets like the Sukhoi 30 Mk1 are tailored for India and produced under the transfer of technology arrangements. These serve as the backbone of the Indian Air Force. The fleet runs into the hundreds and remains central to India's long-range air power and regional deterrence. Now, for the Indian Army, its Warhorse tanks, variants of the Russian T-90s, license-built in India's Bhishma, form a significant share of mechanized strength. Now, India continues to buy spares and upgrade kits from Russia, including recent contracts for more powerful engines for the T-90s. And for the Indian Navy too, the submarine-to-carrier pipeline from Kilo-class diesel subs as well as aircraft carrier refits, Moscow is integral to New Delhi's naval modernization and its Indo-Pacific posture. Now, even as India diversifies, for example, buying Rafales from France and increasing purchases from the US as well as Israel, Russia still supplied the single largest share of India's arms imports in recent years, making Moscow an indispensable defense partner during a rapid force modernization. Now, Putin's India visit is likely to further strengthen the military equipment trade for coming years, if not decades. But trade lines between Moscow and New Delhi run beyond armed forces. The slippery slope of oil trade has been balanced well too. So if defense is the hard security pillar, energy is the economic spine. Since Western sanctions on Moscow changed global flows in the aftermath of the start of Russia's offensive on Ukraine, India emerged as one of the largest buyers of discounted Russian crude, helping New Delhi secure cheaper feedstock for its refineries as well as meet domestic fuel demand. Bilateral trade has surged. India imports from Russia were recorded at roughly $67 billion in the year 2024, driven largely by crude oil and refined products. In volume terms, Russian crude moving to India in the past year accounted for tens of millions of tons in volume, making Russia at times India's largest supplier, even bigger than the OPEC bloc. Cheaper crude helped reduce India's import bill and kept refinery margins healthy, an important domestic economic consideration for New Delhi. And for Moscow, Indian demand offered a reliable customer amid Western restrictions. But the cozying up of Putin and Modi in this geopolitical environment is unlikely to go down well with the US President Donald Trump, especially in light of ongoing trade deal negotiations between New Delhi and Washington. Here's where posture becomes policy. India's growing security ties with the United States, joint exercises, defense sales, and concerns about China, plus, of course, the trade deal negotiations to potentially wipe out the US-imposed 50% tariff on India, could suggest a push into an American orbit. But New Delhi insists on strategic autonomy. That autonomy is the reason India sustained big purchases from Russia despite US warnings. The 2018 S-400 air defense purchase is a case in point. India signed a roughly $5.4 billion deal for 5 regiments despite Washington's sanctions, arguing national security needs and interoperability with existing systems. The US has become a crucial partner, supplying critical platforms and technology, but it does not replace Russia on every front. New Delhi pragmatically hedges, buys Western fighters for some missions, upgrades Russian jets for others, and sources sensors and missiles from multiple partners. So what will the Putin-Modi summit deliver? Well, officials say the agenda will mix energy, defense, and economic pledges. New Delhi hopes for clarity on pending defense deliveries, notably the completion timeline for S-400 systems and possibly talks on new purchases, including upgrades and even future systems. The two leaders are also likely to announce trade targets and business forum initiatives as both sides publicly eye a multi-decade economic push, even if headline arms packages are limited to firming up delivery schedules rather than blockbuster announcements. In short, the India-Russia partnership is sustained by hardware, energy flows, and a shared interest in independence from easy alignments. Expect this summit to deepen ties, quietly, transaction by transaction, while New Delhi continues to keep one eye on Washington.